Now in this tutorial we're going to take you through the basics of assembling and setting up your indoor kite. Now in this case we'll be working with a Kaiju from Kite Forge, and I always like to start from the exact position that you're likely to receive the kite the first time. So what we have here is a completely disassembled kite in the sleeve. What we'll do is go and open up the end here, and as we remove the kite, with any model that you might be working with, you want to make certain that you don't misplace any small parts that might be in the bag. So even as we pull it out, we'll make sure we secure the kite and then just check the sleeve real quick, make sure that there's nothing else in there, top spreader or small batten fittings. In some sleeves, you'll also find a second pocket with a winder and a line set in there. Not always, but something else to keep an eye out for. So now that we've removed the kite from the sleeve, we're going to go ahead and unroll, and we set aside any spars. And one of the reasons that I like to set those aside is that sometimes if they're in my working space, they can invert and they poke through the sail or something like that. So once more, we have a completely disassembled kite. So what I've done is opened one wing, then the leading edge. And what we'll do is reach in here and find the ferrule, or the joint that connects the two leading edge parts. Sometimes takes a little bit of finagling. You don't want to use force. You want to let it find itself. Once I've done that, I'll pull all the slack to the end. And what I'll do here is remove this end cap from the wingtip and show you how we tension this tip. So I've wiggled the vinyl end cap right off the end here. And in this case, on the Kaiju, what we have is a very simple tension line that goes through the knock like this. And what I'm going to do is pull it up until this little loop right here is gone. So as I apply enough tension and it comes straight, that's where we want it. So once I've grabbed that tension, I have it pinned. Now we're going to go ahead and take that cap and we're going to wiggle it on there, making sure that we don't release that tension while it's going on. And now that wing is secure. We'll go ahead and move on to the other one. So once more, we open the wing, looking for the ferrule or joint that connects those two. Just like that. And once more, we'll wiggle off the end cap. Sometimes the fitting on the end may not be secured. A lot of times that's done so that you can replace it more easily should you break one. So another small part to keep an eye on. But once more, I've drawn up all the tension. I have no slack showing here. Then we'll take that end cap, wiggle it right onto the tip there. Make sure it's all the way on and secure. And now what we have is the completely assembled two leading edges. So in this case, I usually like to start with my top spreader. So the top spreader is the shorter of the three spars. We're going to go ahead and insert into the top. Now, anytime that we insert a spar into the fitting, we want to make certain that we're not using force, because if you apply too much pressure and the spar jumps, you can actually punch a hole through the sail. And that's something that I have done in the recent past. So it happens even to the best of us. So we'll go ahead and put in the other spreader fitting here. Now what you'll notice in this case is that both of the bridle connections, that's the harness here on the front of the kite, are going over the top. They're not wrapped around any of the fittings. So having put in the top spreader, we'll go ahead and put in the bottom spreader. And on this model of kite, the center of the bottom spreader fittings are easily noted by these two stoppers here. So again, that will be the centermost place. And what we'll do is start with one spreader and connect to the leading edge first. In this case, I'm going to make sure that my bridle slides all the way up to the fitting there. Once a kite is broken in and tightened up a little bit, that will stay in place. And once more, I'm going to go ahead and put in this spreader. But one thing is, we want to make sure that we don't hold it too far back on the rod, because we tend to lose our leverage. So I always recommend holding it very close and use a lot of care getting that in there, because once more, it can happen where you can miss that fitting and actually shoot through the sail. So now that we've put in the leading edge portion of the bottom spreader, we'll go on to the center part. And on this bridle, we like to make sure that it comes all the way up to the top there. And once more, once a kite is broken in, you'll find that those actually will lock into place. So now that I have the center T portion assembled, we're going to go ahead and go in and get our standoff, also called a whisker. Let's go ahead and do the other side. So once more, C-clip or stopper in the center. We're going to make sure that our bridle is all the way up against that fitting, gripping close to the end of the rod and inserting. Now, one of the other things that you can do as well on new kites is if you have difficulty sliding the spar into the fitting, take just a little bit of fine grained sandpaper and round off that edge. It'll make it a lot smoother to actually insert. So there we go. And I've made sure that they are inserted all the way into the fitting as well. So to complete this, we'll go ahead and put the center T portion together and then come back to the standoff. And now we'll go into the battens. So the battens are the spars that support the sail. Not all kites have them, and some that do have them are actually attached in different places. So on the Kaiju, the top of the batten rod will insert directly into the little corner pockets here in the nose. Sometimes you'll see that there will be a vinyl tube up here that they can insert into and that kind of thing on other models. So again, there will be different methodologies, but the basic principle is the same. So we'll make sure that the bridle is set away from the kite there. It's not behind any of the spars. And what I'm going to do right here is take this little fitting and we're going to bend that rod out and slide it right in there and then come around and do the other side just like this. So now the kite is fully assembled and we're just going to do a quick spot check. So the first thing we do is we pull the bridle points up as if it were going to fly. And we want to make sure once more that they're not wrapped around any of the fittings here. Even here, I want to make sure that this kind of tightens up to the top and it has a nice straight shot off the kite. Once more, we'll check this side. That looks good. All of these are in the correct place. Sometimes if you have a little bit of slack in your tensioner line, you can actually take that and insert it right into the leading edge. It gives you a much smoother line and less to get snagged up on. So we'll go do the other wingtip here. Just like this. Making sure it lays in there nice and straight. And then the last thing that we'll do sometimes as well is just make sure that our tensioning in the sail is correct. So there's no slack or bubble here. No slack or bubble here. The wingtips are well tensioned. And then the last one as well is making sure that our spine is tightened correctly. And again, when a kite comes from the factory, there's just a few things that you'll want to tighten up naturally. And here it is. I'm just putting a little bit more tension on there, but not so much that I'm stressing or torquing the kite. And one of the signs of a spine, this is the spine here, that's been tightened too much, is that it'll actually warp or bend out of position. So however tight you have it, you want to make sure that it still lays in a straight line. And here you can see the function of the battens and how they hold the sail in shape, which is sometimes very important for an indoor kite. So that takes us through the assembly of the kite. Also in the sleeve, we had that line set. So we'll go ahead and get this out here. And what I have here is a 7-foot line set. I generally recommend for dual lines 7 or 10 feet. 7 foot I like because I tend to do a lot of one-hand flying, rodeo flying, that kind of thing. So the 7 foot makes it a little bit easier for that. 10 foot will give you a little bit more space and room in which to operate. So what I'll do here is pull the loops off the end of the winder. And folks will wind their lines up differently in different cases, but in my case I do prefer to wind from the grip first so that I have the loops of the line laying out. So we'll take one of the bridles, once more making sure that it's not twisted or wrapped around anything. Put that right on there with a lark's head. And if you've not seen the lark's head before, it's done most easily with the 2 fingers through like this. We'll roll downward to make the 2 loops. We squeeze them together, and then we take our bridle connection, loop that guy right here. So now that we have the lines connected, what we'll do is lay the kite out in front of us and unwind the rest of the lines. Of course, securing our winder, we don't want that to get away from us. And then what I'll do is reach up here and let any wraps drop out. And that's it, we're ready to fly. The last note that we'll say on actual setup is how to attach the lines to your hands. So I tend to switch a lot between one and two-handed flying, so I don't attach them to my fingers. I just hold the loops. And I tend to hold them on my lower finger like this. But some pilots, if they're not switching, if you're always going to fly with two hands, what you can do is lark's head that line right onto your lower finger so that you never drop that loop. We'll do that once more on the other side. So here's a little lark's head right onto a lower finger, whether it's the ring finger or the middle finger, whatever works best for you. And now that way, again, as I'm flying, then I won't drop the lines. So that is your basic setup and assembly process. I look forward to seeing you again in another tutorial, and we'll get you going in the air.